Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, your destination to hear stories of how businesses grow and scale. I'm Robert Brill, CEO of BrillMedia.co and the host of this podcast. Now, let's jump right into this week's interview. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today our guest is Omer Samiri, co-founder of iVision Mobile, which is a business text messaging and mobile communications business. Since 2006, iVision Mobile has made it easy, fast, and affordable for businesses of all sizes to add business texting to engage one-on-one with customers. So Omer, tell us a little bit about iVision Mobile. What do you guys do? When did you start it? More in detail around what was going on in your life in 2006. And thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Thanks for having me. So iVision Mobile, essentially what we do is we help businesses and organizations communicate in just its general basic sense. So as you know, businesses and organizations are communicating with their customers, they're communicating with their prospects, they're communicating with their employees. And nowadays, I think by and large, the preferred method of communication is text messaging. So that's essentially what we do. Some of the communication is marketing related. Some of it is non-marketing related, what we call transactional messaging, like appointment reminders, order confirmations, shipping updates, things like that. We essentially do it all.
So take us back to 2006. It seems like the world was very different in 2006. This was prior to the Great Recession. This was sort of the end of that period where people were kind of like happy-go-lucky. It seems like it. We went to school. Well, we went to school together, but we didn't overlap that much. We were in the same fraternity, Pi Kappa Phi. So we have some of the same shared college experiences. You're a volleyball player. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that were going on in your life that spurred you to start this business, because that's a very interesting set of circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the idea started in 2001. So at the time, I had graduated college from Cal State Northridge, and I was working in nightlife. I was actually producing large events in the Hollywood area, surrounding LA area. And at the time, I was using text messaging. This is pre-smartphones, when flip phones are still around. I was using text messaging for my business, my nightclub event production business. And I was driving home one night, late night, and really thinking about the fact that it's just a matter of time before this technology is going to be used by other businesses, not just my business, but any other type of business out there. It was right around the time Verizon VCast was coming out, video messaging, things like that. And so in 2001 is when I came up with the idea. I then spent about a year and a half or so doing research, writing a marketing plan, because I was a marketing major at Northridge, so I had that experience, looking at competition, looking at the technology that's available out there, and starting to attend wireless shows. So at the time, they were doing the wireless trade shows in and around LA, San Francisco, San Diego, and I was attending those. And at those shows, they were saying, why isn't everybody doing this? It's already, light years ahead in Asia and in Europe, and the US was lagging behind. So I had done all my due diligence, wrote my business plan, and then I needed to solicit the help of somebody to actually help me build the technology, because I'm not an engineer. And that's when I partnered up with my business partner, Derek Sims, who's also a CSUN graduate, was in a different fraternity, but nonetheless, we were still colleagues. I had approached him with the idea. I said, listen, this is the opportunity that I see. Let me take you to the wireless show. I flew him to Vegas to go to the wireless show with me and attend it with me. And at that point, he had realized the opportunity as well. And then we set off to build this technology. And what that encompassed was essentially us meeting 3 to 5 nights a week and working from 7 p.m. to 2, 3 in the morning, 3 to 5 nights a year for the better part of 3 years. So between 03 and 06 was all development. And then in 06, we finally were able to launch our technology and get into the marketplace. So that's kind of the lead up. So it was about a 5-year span to get from start to launch.
Tell us about the software. So this is proprietary software that you have. So tell us about what it does.
Yeah, so it's a web-based software. It's all proprietary, built in-house by our engineers. We don't outsource the technology. We're not private labeling anybody else's platform. It's a web-based software that allows a business to log in and basically administer messaging initiatives, whether it's one-on-one messaging, whether it's broadcast messaging to large groups of people. We have a digital couponing system. We have a kiosk technology that really started to come about in 2013 when tablet technology started to evolve. Prior to 2013, there were really Wasn't great tablet technology out there, but in the last 7 or 8 years, tablets have really evolved. And so we provide a kiosk loyalty system. We have digital coupons. We do a lot of appointment reminders and things of that nature. And we have about 10,000 businesses across North America that log in every day to administer different types of messaging campaigns on behalf of their business and their organizations.
That's incredible. So basically you spent 3 years like just perfecting this product.
The first version of it. The first version. Of it. Yeah. Yeah. We've gone through a lot of enhancements and evolution since then. In 2006, there was no such thing as responsive web design. So back then it was all fixed width design. And we went through a tremendous overhaul, probably around 2014, 2015 to repurpose our entire technology for responsive design websites so that you can access it from a mobile device and things like that.
And tell us about the types of clients you have. Like what are the use cases? When we've spoken about this, we talked about restaurants and loyalty, but it seems like there's a whole slew of use cases here.
Yeah, in fact, we work with just about every vertical and every industry out there. Maybe with the exception of like adult related stuff, we work with just about every vertical. And we have two types of clients. We have direct clients that log into iVision Mobile. They use the software under iVision Mobile. We work with healthcare practitioners and hospitals. We work with brick and mortar retail. We work with brick and mortar dining, quick serve dining, fast casual dining. We work with hospitality, entertainment venues. We work with sports teams like NBA teams that use our software, organizations, really across the wide spectrum of the business space. We work with just about every vertical out there. And then the other big niche that we cater to is the reseller vertical. So we have people that and organizations that want to get into text messaging. They don't have their own technology. They don't want to go and build their own technology. So we offer a private label where we can actually white label or private label the software for that particular business or organization. And then they can take our technology and essentially offer it to their client base under their private label. So we are transparent and we empower them with our technology. And that's where the lion's share of our user base comes from, is that reseller network.
That's great. So loyalty is one opportunity with restaurants. Another one is like, what's the use case with like hospitals, for example?
So hospitals are doing a lot of different things. They will oftentimes put up a billboard that allows people to text in to get emergency room wait times. We see some of those locally here in the San Fernando Valley, billboards that have you text in to get the ER wait times at the nearest hospitals. So they do that. They also do a lot of community initiatives. So they work with local schools, primarily high schools, to do things like pregnancy awareness and education and drug awareness and education and really community initiatives that have people text in to gather more information. Sometimes they'll do surveys. Sometimes we have debt collection companies that work on behalf of these healthcare institutions that use the technology to communicate about, payment related notices and things like that.
Wow. What are some of the key do's and don'ts of text messaging in 2021?
It's a really great question, actually. In 2013, the landscape of text messaging changed pretty dramatically with the reemergence of the TCPA, which is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. It got kind of an overhaul in 2013. And essentially what it comes down to is really just getting proper consent from consumers before sending them ongoing messaging. So if you're if you're a business or organization and you want to message your customers, your prospects, your employees, and that messaging is going to be of an ongoing nature, meaning it's not just one-off, it's ongoing. You need to have certain disclaimer language that's presented to the consumer before they've opted in. And then you need to get their express written consent. So that written consent can be digital in the sense of them texting in or filling out a form online, or even entering their number on a digital kiosk. But you need to have that express consent before you can start messaging those consumers on an ongoing basis.
Is this typically called double opt-in?
Double opt-in is one way of doing it. That's more bulletproof because you are essentially sending a text message to the consumer with all the disclaimer language in the message, and then they have to reply yes to affirm their consent. So we consider a double opt-in the most bulletproof form of consent, but it's not necessary. It's not required. So you can have a web form on your website, and that web form can ask somebody for their mobile number and list the disclaimer information, and that would be considered consent. However, the concern and the potential issue with a single opt-in is that somebody can make the claim that they didn't enter in their information, that somebody did it for them. I can go to a web form and I can type in your information and opt you in, and you didn't necessarily see that disclaimer language. I did. You can argue that you didn't. So a single opt-in is not bulletproof. It's fine, but for some of our larger brands that we work with, larger organizations, we always encourage and recommend that they do a double opt-in.
That's fascinating. So tell us a little bit about, over the last few years, some of the key milestones that you've encountered or you've had as you've grown the business. Like in 2006, how do you start getting customers? You're new to the business.
Yeah, so we bootstrapped this company. We didn't have outside funding or investment. It was basically my partner and I that got this company off the ground. And we started by basically going through our network of contacts and saying, who do we know? What do they do? And how can they use our technology? And that's how we established a base clientele, a client base. We had Rick Dees in the morning. We were friends with his son, Kevin, and we got in with Rick Dees very early on, and he was doing texting on the weekly top 40. That was one of our first clients. My wife has a friend that works for the NBA, and she had set up a meeting for us to go and pitch the NBA, which we did back in 2006. And within a couple of weeks, we had the Seattle Supersonics running a draft party with our technology. And that led to, 5 NBA teams within the first year. We signed up the Rockets, the Thunder, the Pacers, the Heat, all using our technology. And then obviously with the nightclub space and the event production space, there was nightclubs and event production promoters and production companies that signed up as well to start utilizing the system. So that allowed us to really kind of build our initial foundation of clients, maybe 10 or 20 clients. And that really just kind of set the groundwork for growth from there. But we needed that existing, that initial client base to really help us get off the ground. And then, a lot of word of mouth and referrals from there on.
That's incredible. How late or how many years did it take you to advance into like the agency space? And was that what was your strategy part of that, getting into the agency space?
So the reseller white label network did not really come about until about 2008. We had an agency out of Chicago reach out to us. They were interested in our technology, but they said, hey, do you guys offer a private label? And at the time we didn't. And so we went and we basically, I wouldn't call it re-engineered, but we enhanced our system to support a private label, and we removed any reference to iVision Mobile so it can be rebranded for anybody. And that was our initial kind of foray into the private label world. And that was our initial reseller that signed up out of Chicago. But since then, we've onboarded. Now we have about 120 active resellers nationwide. They're all across the country and some in Canada as well that license our technology. Some are focused on specific niches like automotive, or they're agencies and they work with brands. And others just kind of canvas, like we do, a large segment of the marketplace, across multiple verticals, and they work that way. And we have resellers that have been with us now for 10, 12, 13 years that are still trucking along and continually building their business.
That's incredible. How do you continue to grow the company? You've been doing this for so long. You have the benefit of testimonials, you have the benefit of big name advertisers that you can talk about, or clients, I should say.
Sure.
What are some of the tactics or overall growth strategies that you've deployed over the years to kind of continue your momentum?
So I think empowering our resellers and our licensees to grow their business has been a huge source of our growth. So if we can empower a reseller and make it cost effective for them to essentially run a business and build a business leveraging our technology, for every client that they add on, we might not necessarily be making money on the specific client, but we're making money incrementally on the growth of that reseller. So it's really about fostering that relationship with those licensees and supporting them with technology enhancements and things like that to help them grow their business and keeping their costs, nominal so that they can earn the margins that they need to be successful and sustain the business. That has been, the primary focus for us is really supporting licensees and ensuring their growth. That's led to much of our growth, consequentially. And then as far as us, really kind of building iVision Mobile and our brand and our client base, we started off very early doing press releases. And press releases are great because they have an SEO component, right? They help with search engine rankings and they get picked up and distributed across different newsworthy sites. So inadvertently, by doing all these press releases in the first few years, we were essentially driving up our search engine juice and our rankings that led to additional clients finding us online. Much of our business now really comes from referrals and clients that have been using our system for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, direct clients, spas, hair salons, med spas, doctors' offices. We work with YMCAs. We work with a lot of Coca-Cola distributors. And so once you get in with one Coca-Cola distributor and they have, tangible success with the technology at a relatively low cost, and they start referring you to other distributors, and those chips start to fall. So that's been the primary source of our growth over the years. And then, we are starting now, 15 years into this business, to create a little bit more structure in terms of how we advertise and promote our business online with LinkedIn advertising, Facebook sponsored posts and ads, more press releases, and just more of an official strategy, if you will.
When you work on press releases, that's interesting. What do you announce, like the onboarding of a new client? Like how do you structure that?
Press releases can vary in content. We're either talking about a success with a specific client. We have newsworthy clients. So talking about work like with the Houston Rockets, they're doing COVID testing, COVID screening. So when you walk to the stadium, you can scan or text in. You then get a text message back with a link to complete a 3-question survey, a COVID screening survey. All that is facilitated through text messaging. So sometimes we highlight some of these initiatives that our clients are implementing. Other times we talk about feature launches. Like if we have a new feature, like we launched a touchless check-in system for the kiosks, because with COVID, people don't want to touch digital screens anymore, right? Everybody's very apprehensive to touching things. So we added a touchless component where somebody can scan a QR code and essentially touchlessly check in from their phone without ever having to touch any hardware. And there's a security component to it that protects and ensures that there's no misuse. So oftentimes it's really just a matter of sending out a press release for a new feature release.
And when you reference like one of the NBA teams, I mean, do you have to get, I imagine you have to get approvals from them to be able to.
We do, and they don't oftentimes give it. So we try to ask a lot, very frequently, because we want to be able to highlight our work with some of those more reputable, newsworthy clients. But other times we focus on local brick and mortar mom and pop businesses that are using our technology as well. And I think that's where the lion's share of our user base is. We do have the brands that use our software, and some of those well-known, like Clorox. We ran a huge campaign for Clorox last year prior to COVID with flu alerts that was on their website and everything. But we oftentimes just highlight our local brick and mortar business success, because they're the ones that are really getting in and using the system as part of their daily operations.
So when you send press releases, do you have a preferred like partner? Like I know Cision is in the space with PR Web and Variety. Like do you have, and then Berkshire Hathaway's in that space. Like do you have a preference there?
We don't have a preference. We've used PR Web. We've used PR365.com. I think now, Cision owns a few of those entities. So I think we use PR Newswire. They have the farthest reach. It comes at an investment of $1,000 to $1,500 per release, around that range. But the value, I think, is there in terms of that long-term established link that gets generated on some of those news sites.
Sure. I've done press releases for our business, but it's through PR Web, and it's like just under $300. And I think next time we have something that we can talk about. I mean, we have a lot to talk about, but I don't have the rights to talk about our big clients.
Sure.
It's too much of a hassle to do.
Right. Yeah. No, PR Web is okay. I feel like they don't have quite the reach that PR Newswire might have with their distribution.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some companies get on like Yahoo Finance through Berkshire Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, to me, the next one I'm going to try, but I might also try PR Newswire.
Okay.
When you do press releases, do they show up only digitally, or are they also like in like newspapers and print publications?
I don't think they get picked up on a print.
Yeah.
In the print channel, I think they primarily get picked up online, and they get distributed online.
Yeah, and for SEO, that's what matters.
And that's all we need, really. So we try to incorporate a lot of our keywords into the press release itself. So if we're targeting a certain keyword in our search engines, we'll incorporate those keywords strategically into the press release. So the press release is not only designed to get the word out about what we're doing, it's meant to enhance our SEO strategy by keyword incorporation.
Did you just inherently know that, or did someone like clue you in? Because that makes so much sense. I'm not doing that with our press releases.
I'm not the SEO guru necessarily, but my business partner certainly has done a lot more research on SEO tactics. And so at the time, I think, you treat a press release almost like a landing page, right? You're going to create a landing page that's going to be SEO focused. It's going to incorporate keyword inclusion. Press release is really not much different from that, only it's going on a newsworthy site, which has much better implications in terms of search algorithms. So we treat it the same. And so the keyword inclusion is really critical.
How has the last year, going back to the start of 2020, I mean, it's a tough year for a lot of businesses.
Sure.
Does your business get affected? Is there a good effect? Is it a bad effect? I mean, you're so accessible to so many businesses.
I would say it's a little of both. And that's a really good question. And I think, we had a lot of momentum going into 2020, a lot of momentum, and I think a lot of businesses did. The economy was operating on all cylinders. There was this, kind of mental high, if you will, where businesses were just cranking and consumers were spending, and everybody was just riding this wave at the peak of the market. And then, so we had a lot of momentum going in. We were expecting a blockbuster year, and then COVID hit in March, and that had two effects on our business. The main effect was that we didn't sign up as many clients in 2020 as we had anticipated. So we were expecting, an influx of our normal acquisitions, that we and client onboarding that we typically do. That did not materialize. But what I can tell you is that the clients that were using texting use text messaging more in this year because they couldn't interact face-to-face with their customers and their prospects. So a lot of these businesses that had an opted-in database that they were communicating with will actually, they invested more in those communications because, like I said, letting people know about closings and openings and changes in operations, and sometimes just well wishes, like we hope you're doing well during this difficult time. So I think the nature of the messaging evolved a little bit, where it was not really as marketing focused as maybe in the past. It was more touching base with customers, letting them know when they're open, letting them know when they're closed, letting them know if there's any changes to policies and procedures, things like that. So our volume went up, our messaging volume went up in 2020, but our client base kind of plateaued.
Do you have a point of view on like the psychology of texting relative to like emails or social media? Texting is such a personal communication.
It is. And I would say that in 2006, talking about text messaging was a much different dynamic because the average consumer, or I should say not the average consumer, both the average consumer and the average business owner were fairly traditional in their ways. And when you talked about text messaging, there was no kiosk back then, but when you talked about text messaging, it was really conceptual, right? You talk about text messaging and it's not a tangible product that you can see in front of your face. And if you had to poll your audience in 2006, you'd find that some people still preferred phone calls and other methods of communication. But if you did that same poll now in 2021 and you asked 10 people what method of communication they prefer, they're going to tell you the majority are going to prefer text messaging because it's effective, it's efficient, it's easy and quick, and it is personal. And so, we recommend like personalization. If a business has a person's name, they should always personalize those texts. It has a much bigger participation rate and response rate than just sending a generic message. But I think generally speaking, text messaging now is the preferred method of communication. And the demographic of those that are texting has greatly increased. So, back in 2006, it was really just people in their 20s and 30s that were text messaging. Even those that were in their 40s plus were not really hip with texting yet. And you fast forward now to today's time, and you have, my grandmother who's 80 years old texting me in Hebrew. So I think the general demographic has evolved where the majority of consumers text and prefer texting. So
texting because I don't have to talk to people.
You don't have to talk to people, and it's quick and easy. And in use cases like this where we're sitting on a phone, we're sitting on a call here. Granted, I'm not going to do it, but if I got a text message, I'm much more likely to read and respond to that text message without really detracting from the call.
Absolutely. And what's interesting from the perspective of marketing the messages, that there's so many messages in the marketplace every day, and I definitely pay attention to the messages I get on my text. There's like 3 or 4 vendors that are constantly reaching out to me, which to a degree it's like, okay, I don't want all that messaging, but I still want to maintain the relationship with them because I'm going to continue to buy stuff with them.
Yeah.
And the messages break through much more than an email. My inbox is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that people discard most marketing emails nowadays. They go through and they check all the boxes and they move to the trash pretty seamlessly. Whereas with text messages, have you ever received a text message that you didn't read? Probably not, right? So most people that get a text message are going to read that message, even though they might not respond to it. And really, the low cost nature of text messaging for the business, it's really just about staying top of mind. So you might get a text message once a month from, a furniture store, and you're not going to shop for furniture once a month. But when that time does come for you to purchase furniture, you're going to say, oh, I get text messages from this company all the time, so I'm going to go check it out, because it's just about staying top of mind.
How can people reach out to you, Omer?
They can reach out one of several ways. They can go to our website, iVisionMobile.com, fill out the contact us form, and we're very hands-on. Someone from our team will reach out. They can email support@iVisionMobile.com and get to our team as well. They can also call us toll-free. Right, our toll-free number is 866-655-5302. And I'm always very accessible, and so people can always reach me pretty immediately. But we're all very hands-on. So we have a team of 9 located across LA, Texas, and Florida. So we cover, clients across the East Coast as well that call us early for support. We're there to support them, and we're all very hands-on.
That's amazing. Omer Samiri, co-founder iVision Mobile. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.